All right, Yogi, am I going with or this? Or
Oh, I I'm scared with the one in your right hand,
okay, well,
you know,
we can play a little devil's advocate then if you'd like.
as we as you nailed it.
As we
You nailed
should, because you know what? It's a big day. Ashley Adamson, Yogi Roth here. Yogi's favorite day of the year for a little bit of a different reason than it is my favorite day of the year. Halloween for CFP poll, but we're together and that's all that matters. And we're going to talk some football.
Yes, looking forward to it. I think everybody around the country is kind of like right in that lull right now. You're like about to go pick up your kids on the West Coast, so you're getting a little college football action right now, and then it's off to the races. So drop any advice to Ashley and I around trick or treating, because we're probably right. We're both about to do that the minute this thing ends. We are rolling with some candy starved children, probably like right outside your door. They're right outside my door here as well.
Yeah, if this thing gets blown up by kids wearing dragon costumes, then just don't say we didn't warn you. All right, awesome to have everybody along for the ride. Obviously, drop your questions in the chat, hit us up, let us know what you're interested in, what stood out to you. And I guess in case you did miss it and you are just watching this, I'm going to take these off because I can't take myself seriously. We've got 6 teams in the top 20, Yogs. First time we've ever had 6 teams in the first CFP poll. So we've been talking about what a big time, season this has been and continues to be. And I think as you look at it, so we've got Washington sitting at 5th overall, Oregon right behind them at number 6, Oregon State 16th, Utah 18th, UCLA 19th, and USC 20th. So we'll get into the nuances a little bit, but as you look at this, kind of what jumps out to you? Any surprises?
Not surprised to see them at 5-6. I think that's fair just based on the other teams and where they are and how they're undefeated. I think it sets up for the Pac-12 to really control if they end up in the CFP or not. The challenge is when you start to comp everybody ahead of them, and I'm sure this will be talked about in the room with Boot Corrigan. It's talked about when we present to the CFP every week or so throughout the majority of the rest of the season, is the strength of this league, what you just said, 6 teams in the top 20. And I think Arizona has all the talent to be among those in the top 20. They haven't been able to finish a couple games. They get an opportunity again against UCLA after knocking off number 11 in the AP Oregon State a week ago. So this thing will shift a lot, but I think the proper teams are allocated. And the fun part is some of them play each other. The bummer for Pac-12 fans is a lot of the teams that are ranked ahead of Pac-12 schools, you're wondering like where are the competitive games. We know Ohio State and Michigan play each other. We also know that Ohio State got into the playoff after not being in a title game a year ago. I don't think that's going to happen to anybody in our league. Like the team that's sitting out, are they not going to play? Like you have some wonky tiebreak scenario that I don't necessarily anticipate happening right now if UW is to lose one to be sitting out of the champ game. So we'll see as the drama unfolds. But Pac-12 fans should be excited about where they sit today.
Yeah. And by the way, 3 of Washington's remaining opponents are ranked as of right now. All 3 of USC's remaining opponents are ranked right now, and 2 of Oregon's are ranked as well. So it's going to be a fun finish in this conference. And you mentioned it, but the reality is for Washington and Oregon, if you take care of business, you feel like you're in exactly where you want to be. So that's probably the biggest thing as we sit here in week 1. And so much will change, Yogi. I just think about all the years we've done this. This is the 10th year of the playoff. And actually the final year, we should mention too, I'm sure everybody knows this, but the final year of the 4-team playoff. Next year, it goes to 12 teams. And I think everybody's excited about that, or most people are. But it's funny because it's not like we're going to stop arguing. Like the debates are going to be different. It's going to be between 4, 5, and 6, and then it's going to be 12, 13, 14. So it's just, the debate won't stop, Yogs, even though
the debate won't stop, but at least, on the West Coast, you'll have a voice. Which is nice this year to have that. I think if there were a couple bones to pick, and look, it's Halloween, it's the first ranking, like take it for what it is. Dramatic things can change. But I think it's the constant dialogue. And if you go back to media days, it feels like centuries ago, but this past July, if you were there, you saw a conversation between myself, the head of the college football playoff, Bill Hancock, and a couple others, right? Rob Mullins being one of them, who was the chair of it. Rick George, who has been on the committee, and try to just talk about what it's like to be in that room. And I asked them one very pointed question, which was, is it 4 best or is it 4 best bodies of work? And I think what we saw today is a little bit of both. right? Because you're looking at undefeated teams. And I'm trying to say, like, all right, if I'm a Washington fan right now, I'm saying we're undefeated. Well, the world that I would look at them and say, well, it'd be four best right now. The way UW has played, to be fair, the last 2 weeks wouldn't put them in that same conversation of the 4 teams above them. If you went 4 best bodies of work, I think you can make a conversation because they were just rolling teams when they were healthy, when Michael Penix Jr. didn't have the flu, when their offensive line was totally solidified. So I think they'll have a chance based on what we see today to climb, right? They go ball out this weekend against USC in a huge matchup the whole country's going to watch. Do they end up at number 3 next week? Who knows? I think it's fair discussion. And then the other side of it is here's Oregon saying, yeah, I know we lost, but we look better most recently. Again, 4 best bodies of work. That'd be the Oregon case versus 4 best right now. That would be Oregon's case. 4 best bodies of work would be Washington's case. So I think you can see, I'd imagine the committee is having that type of debate.
Yeah. And I think, I was lucky enough to, and I know you've done this, but gone to Dallas for the mock selection exercise that the CFP people put on. And I learned a lot. I felt like I had a pretty good take on the process, but there was a lot of debate between, okay, is it the most deserving teams?
Yeah.
Or the best teams. And so it's a different way to say kind of what you're saying. But 2021 was the year that we used in our mock exercise, and Cincinnati, who was undefeated and had a win over Notre Dame, they were deserving to be in the playoff. But there were a lot of people in the room arguing that they were not one of the 4 best teams in the country. So it is an art, not a science. And by the way, before we go any further, Britt Covey in the house.
Yes.
Britt Covey, you are our favorite people. Love seeing his name pop up on the screen. I mean, maybe I think I can go ahead and say this. I think maybe my all-time favorite Pac-12 player that I've covered. I think that's,
wow.
I think,
yeah, he's in the dialogue.
Confidence.
He's in that. Look, I'll say this. I've had a nice little intern program here, and he and Michael Wilson both thriving and have thriven at the next level, let alone the Pac-12. Yeah, that's a new word. I'd put them on my team if I needed
Mount Rushmore. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'm going to say just Britt takes the cake, and then we can get back to football. But everyone remembers his locker room celebrations.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Costumes.
It's Halloween.
I mean, he played a game with like a beard in his shoulder pads, like he then broke out, for the post-game celebration. So Britt Covey, shout out to you, buddy. Glad you're here. Keep killing it in the NFL. Okay, so back to, I think and I wonder if it is interesting to people, and you tell us again in the chat if this is something you want us to get into, but I do think it's interesting to get a little bit of the nuance behind the scenes of how the committee goes about their business, right? So this is the very first, the first time they've met yesterday and today, and this is the first group of teams that we've sort of seen them rank. And one of the things when I looked at, when I was out there and was trying to go through and figure out exactly how they do it, it's a nuanced process. Like the system is the committee of experts, right, with a set of criteria, and there will be committee members that disagree, but essentially you go through like 7 rounds of voting, and you can get into the weeds on it a little bit. But ultimately you use all kinds of data. You look at all these team sheets. Like here's an example. I don't know how well people can see this, but this is from Oregon's team sheet in 2021. There is almost every little bit of information that you would really care about can be fit onto this sheet. But you go through and you decide when there are comparable resumes, and it's kind of at the margins is how they talk about it. There are things that they look at, and that's championships won, strength of schedule, head-to-head competition, comparative outcomes of common opponents. And then, and I think this is important, Yogi, because as somebody who presents to the committee, this is a big part of it, but player availability or coach availability that may have had an impact on a game or a certain part of the season. So I guess I would just toss it over to you and ask, like, when you're presenting to the committee along with the other wonderful people in the league office, what are the conversation? What's the dialogue been in that first meeting? What are the questions they're asking, and what are you trying to provide them with?
Well, I'll say this, like, the only bummer is that it's not recorded and it's not broadcast, because it'd be incredible television, I think, when you look at how probably each respective conference stands up for itself. Just to take people inside ours, it's Commissioner George Kliavkoff, Merton Hanks, Jim Thornby, and myself, and Shauna Brown, like the people that are basically in charge of football from an operations standpoint, from a conference standpoint. And our job is to arm the 2 people who represent the Pac-12 conference with context. So they get all of that information, all that data that you looked at and showcased on that sheet, and their job is to digest it. And we've been around committee members, and they've got these booklets that are like this thick, like inches thick of all the information, all the content, all you name the statistic, they have a way to look at it and compare teams. But ultimately, you need context. You need to know like what happened to Washington and their offensive front. And Michael Penix Jr. was a little sick, and they were up 21-6. And then kind of what happened in the ball game. And Brandley Trice had 16 pressures in the game, but Stanford had a nice little game plan, got him on a couple things. Do you have given context around Oregon and UW? Context on different position battles. Last year, to give an example, in the final week, and I still believe this to this day, Washington should have been a New Year's Six bowl team. And we presented the context of their season because all everyone on the outside saw was 2 consecutive losses to UCLA and Arizona State. But nobody really knew, unless you're a diehard UW fan or you watched those respective games, Ash, that their secondary was dramatically depleted. They were playing guys in both of those games that were on the scout team that week that hadn't played a snap, and they got beat on really critical moments in that game. Well, when you present the context, then they take it back, and then the 2 members that represent the Pac-12, let alone every other Power 5 league, they present it to the entirety of the committee. And it's your job to provide that context. So it's really fun because you get in there and like you build your case. Like you go like Jerry Maguire or like Matthew McConaughey, like you're an attorney in a case, and you're trying to just put the facts forward and also let them know what's going down in case they don't stay up and watch the game. Now, I believe every committee member is chosen because of their commitment to the craft, but the reality is like there's human nature, and you think, well, it's Bama or it's Texas, whatever it may be. And that, I believe, sometimes seeps into it. We saw it with Washington State a couple years ago. I think we saw it with UW last year. So that will be the part. And that's why I think it's good to see the other 4 teams sitting where they are. I think it's important because Oregon State's going to play Oregon, right? And they're going to play Washington. USC, some people wouldn't have them in the top 25. And I understand why. They have not looked good really since the Stanford game, at least the team that we thought they would be coming into the season. But they still have the best player in the country, who has won multiple games for them in Caleb Williams. So you have to take that into account. I like that they're still sitting at 20. I think also another element in this of you look at Arizona State, how do they figure into this? You're thinking, Yogi, what are you talking about? Well, Oklahoma State is sitting at 22. Arizona State, if you remember that game, was 27-15. That was a tight game. ASU had opportunities. I think it was week 2 when they played them. ASU is going to play Oregon. So I think there's layers here that we will continue to provide the context to the committee when you meet with them pretty much every 10 days or so between now and the end of the season.
Yeah. And I think that, again, there is so much football still to be played, even though we're headed into week 10. And with the time that we have remaining, I think we should dive into some of these games because you mentioned a few of them. There's obviously the biggest one is that 4:30 kickoff at the Coliseum with Washington and USC. And I think it's going to be fascinating because there's not an outcome that could happen that would surprise me. I feel like with the games we've watched, and we were at the Cal USC game on Saturday, and boy, I don't know about you. We would need like 3 hours to digest what exactly went down that day because there were things that I'd never seen. But high level, as you look at that game, and our pregame show will be there, so I'm excited to see that up close and live. But what's your prediction? What do you think? What do you expect to see play out, or what are you most curious to see play out in LA this weekend?
Well, I think SC and you're going to be there. They'll meet the moment. They will. I mean, and it is. Wait till you get there and see what it's like to kick off a game when the sun is setting at the Collie in this era of SC football. It is electric. And this is a moment for this program. Make no mistake about it. USC is not what majority of people predicted them to be in the preseason. That's fair criticism. Their run defense, they have struggled. I think in the pass game, they've had flashes, but they've struggled. And they're going to play what is, I think when you look at the rankings, the best offense that I see among all those teams that are ranked. And they have been challenged and been tested. Now, they've also not looked the part the last 2 weeks. So I think we're going to get an incredible start to this game. I think what UW's challenge is to play complementary football. Can you just run it enough with Dylan Johnson, this offensive line that seemingly has settled down? And the biggest challenge for SC and here in LA, Ash, they are just, they're headlines. And a lot of it is because they're not stopping the run. In this game, their secondary is going to get tested. Their secondary is good, but no secondary has stopped what UW can do. Yeah. Hopefully, Jalen McMillan is back as of today. I think it's probably 50-50 from everything that I've read. I don't know if you have any more information on that, but that'll be the challenge because UW has made so many great plays, even when the coverage is perfect. And I think that Ryan Grubb's play design is as impressive I've seen in my entire career. Alabama 2020 was one of the best offenses I've seen. This rivals that in terms of their spacing and how they're moving guys, and they're just running open. And SC's going to have to get home. They're going to have to get to Michael Penix Jr. like Arizona State did to have a chance in this one. I think it'll be a great game to get going, but I think overall UW is just too much, and they proved to be one of the top 4 teams in the country.
Yeah, I remember Kalen DeBoer telling us when we met with him a few weeks ago of just teams that have championship teams that have that killer instinct. So even when things are going well, the human instinct is to let your foot off the gas a little bit, to relax. And he said, our challenge, and this was before their last 2 games against ASU and Stanford, where they didn't look quite the part that we've seen them through the first part of the season. But how do you keep your foot on the gas all the time, whether you're up 50, tied, or down 50? How are you playing with that same urgency in every moment? And I think to have 2 games where it was a little bit shaky, especially that ASU game could have gone either way. And all of a sudden you're talking about a different season and a different set of circumstances. So to be able to survive and win those games, win those ugly games, I think is all part of it for a championship level team, and especially one playing in the Pac-12 that is just so stacked with so many special players. The one that you're going to be at up in Eugene, Cal and Oregon on the Pac-12 network, 2:30 kick. I'm looking forward to this one. And we saw, as happy as you were for USC fans who got to be on the right side of a thrilling finish on Saturday, you were gutted for Cal fans and that program who just left it all out there, and just a few, I'm sure, self-inflicted wounds that they wish they could take back with some of those turnovers. But the Bears aren't going to lay down, and Justin Wilcox teams have always played Oregon really hard. So tell me what you expect for that one and what you're looking for.
I can't wait. You look at just the storylines heading into the game. Justin Wilcox played there, right? He's got tremendous ties to that school. His father, who passed away before this season, Dave Wilcox, is an all-everything member of that school, let alone NFL Hall of Famer. Like, there's just some of that that's really exciting. Also, Oregon, they're playing, I think, as well as anybody in the country. I mean, there's a world where if you said, to your point earlier, who's most deserving right now, like who's playing the best, you could say Oregon. I think even Herbstreit might even mention that on the broadcast today, and I'd agree. You watch Oregon play and what they've done at the line of scrimmage and what they're doing offensively, and they're healthy. Georgia's not healthy. Brock Bowers isn't playing. Michigan hasn't played anybody. We don't know anything. Who knows what'll even happen with them? Ohio State offensively have not been what they've been. Defense is impressive, but again, like, haven't seen an Oregon team. I think they are trending at the right time. Dan Lanning said earlier today, like, the challenge for this team was, can you go from good to great? They all read the book in the offseason. I know you've read that and well-versed on that, Ash. I think this team is as well. And I think they're taking those little increments to become an elite team. I think they got all the tools there. They have the roster there. They got young players. They have vets like Popo Amavai in 7th year, and Mateo Uyunglele is a true freshman, for instance. You got Bo Nix, the most starts in the history of college football. You got Bucky Irving, one of the best running backs in the country, and Troy Franklin playing like he should be talked about as a Biletnikoff finalist. His numbers are better than Marvin Harrison. Ohio State fans won't enjoy that comment, but it's facts. So I just think that this team is primed. They're going to have to stop and slow down the tempo of Cal, but Oregon does tempo too. So it's going to be a fun game. I can't wait to watch it shake out. It should be sold out. It should be packed house again. And Oregon fans should be really stoked. Like, this is a team that can go win the national championship. They have all of the tools to do it, and they have a schedule in front of them that is not easy. It's Cal. It's SC at home. It's at ASU. We know what happened at ASU a couple years ago. And then it's Oregon State at home. But the point is, they got 3 at Adamson, 3 of them. And that is as hard of a place as there is in the country to go play. So the schedule is set. You stay healthy, I would not be shocked to A, see you in Vegas, but B, see you in the college football playoff.
Yeah. And maybe you answered this last question, and then we'll let everyone get on with their trick-or-treating and Halloween plans. But you maybe answered it right there. But the committee says they wipe the slate clean every week, right? Like, they don't rank teams based on last week's rankings. They look at all of the data that is available as of today. So in that spirit, as of October 31st, which Pac-12 team do you believe in most?
I think I'd have to say it's so hard. I'm old school in terms of, like,
I know. You can answer it a bunch of different ways, right? But
I think I'd answer it 2 ways. I'm a huge believer in head-to-head. Like, you can't argue with what happened on the field. And there's a lot of things that Oregon fans or Oregon program, or you can say, like, well, wish they went for it or on the I wish they kicked a field goal before half, or usually they make a field goal at the end of the game when we're talking about an epic finish in overtime. Reality is that didn't happen. I was around Washington in the preseason, much like Oregon. They've given us both tremendous access. And I just felt like coming into the year, those were both 1 and 2, along with Oregon State. They were kind of my top 3 teams. And I think right now, I still believe in Washington. I still do. I think they haven't played well the last 2 weeks, but I still believe in them. But I also think that Oregon's a top 4 team. And I've been saying this really since week 2 when we had all those teams ranked in the AP poll of people need to talk about this league about having 2 playoff caliber teams because they have a playoff caliber conference, right? Look at what sits there today, 6 teams in the top 20. 6 teams are probably going to remain in the top 20. It might change. Arizona might replace UCLA. Who knows how the season shakes out, but I look at those 6 teams and even Arizona as a 7th is continually knocking on the door of these playoff rankings. That point is that among both of these teams in UW and Oregon, there's a real case to say, yeah, I'm not afraid of them playing Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State. Just not. And the cool thing is for Pac-12 fans, this is why we need to keep giving it context, is among all of those teams, it's not even close who has the most challenging schedule. And it's the 2 teams from this league. Look at Ohio State, who they play. I just wrote it down. Ohio State, they go to Michigan, only ranked team. Michigan at Penn State, and then they get Ohio State at home. Florida State, I love you. You're going to go to Pitt. Maybe you get upset over the weekend, or you have them at home, I think. And nobody ranked, right? They finish at Florida. Georgia at Tennessee, top 20 Tennessee. Like nobody has at least 2 games. And I think that UW has 4 really challenging ones. So I really think it's important to talk that way, or not just is a Pac-12 team going to go or which one will go. I think we can sit here, it's been a long time since we've done it, but to sit here confidently and be like, there's 2 teams. There's 2 teams that could throw down with anybody ranked higher than them right now in college football.
Beautifully said. And I think there's a world in which if both Oregon and UW win out and meet again in the title game and Oregon wins a close one, you could make the case that there should be 2. Okay, Yogs.
Let's do it.
Tell your kids. Go ahead and pull out your costume. I know you've got it right there.
It's right around the corner. I'm kind of tied down, a microphone, I don't know if I give you candy though. Like I might.
You definitely shouldn't take candy from me.
But I'll take Pac-12 advice from you all day long.
Hey, you know what? Just everybody go call mom. That's my last piece of advice for you today. Happy Halloween. Yogs, great job. I can't breathe in this thing and I can't hear in it either. Whew. Enjoy Halloween, everybody.
Job. You got it. You're our CFP chair, Ash.
Yeah, Pac-12 is the Game of Thrones. You're right.
That's right. Bye. Happy Halloween.